not. Public comment, to give as many visitors as possible an opportunity to speak in the interest of adjourning by 9. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes in length unless further time is granted by the board on active or general matters. Going once, twice, 3 times. Okay. Move on to our consent agenda for this evening. We have item A, approval of record of bills ending 3/9/17 in the amount not to exceed $630,018.42. Approval of the minutes. Sure we've got everything in there. February 14, 2017 Committee of the Whole. Executive session also of February 14, 2017. The minutes of the 28th Village Board meeting and the meeting minutes of the February 28, 17 of the Committee of the Whole meeting minutes. We also have the approval of the monthly reports, Community Development, Police, Fire, Public Works, Finance Department. Also a resolution authorizing the execution of an agreement between the Village of Westchester and E-Scrap Technologies for the provision of electronic recycling services. Those are all items that we discussed at our last board meeting. Does anyone need anything pulled? If not, is there a motion to second to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Tommy and Nick?
Yep.
Any discussion on anything? If not, Sherby, please call the roll.
Trustee Celestino.
Aye.
Trustee Perry.
Aye.
Trustee Stecker.
Aye.
Trustee Yorkovic.
Aye.
President Hoover.
Aye, motion carries. Active agenda, Janet, we have anything in the hopper?
No, we don't.
Nothing? Your report is next, item number 8.
Just wanted to remind everybody, we're having our annual senior breakfast this Friday at the St. Joe Globe Resource Center. So if you know any seniors who haven't RSVP'd yet, please have them give us a call. We've already gotten about 85
Really?
confirmations.
Oh,
It's going
wow.
to be a big group.
Nice.
And again, I invite all the trustees, if they'd like to come and address our seniors, feel free.
Nice. Great.
Why are you laughing, Frank?
Just looking forward to it.
Because he's a senior. Okay, attorney's report. Michael, anything for us, sir?
I was just wondering if we had previously approved the regular board meeting minutes from February 14th.
Yes.
Okay, and then I've noticed that the ordinance revising the permit fees was not on the last agenda and is not on this one, is not on the
Okay,
cow. Are we
next.
waiting to get closer to the effective date to approve that, or?
There were some clarifications that Melissa wanted to make sure we're good, and we're waiting for you to return to
Okay,
go over those, so next meeting.
so I'm back, so,
Next meeting.
thank you. That's all I had questions on.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Board members, Frankie?
I have
anything?
nothing new to report for EDC.
Nothing. Nikolai?
Nothing.
Carl?
Just to let the board and everyone know that the Environmental Sustainability Commission will be holding a stormwater and environmental public awareness meeting on April 19th at the Westchester Middle School. And just if you want to save the date, there'll be more details to follow, but it'll be a meeting to just let the residents know of updates on the flood maps of Westchester, Addison Creek improvements, and a review of some of the operations for preventing mitigation of stormwater throughout town, as well as other information for the residents. So, but that will be on April 19th at the Westchester Middle School at 7 o'clock.
Okay, I did receive the draft agenda, and it looks fine to me. I don't have any edits to make to it, so nice job on that. I was writing the newsletter today, and you gave me the time, so I have that to include in there. What we may want to do, if you're going to be attending on Friday, I'm not sure if you're off or on,
I am on.
for the senior breakfast?
Yes.
Oh, okay, then, I'll let you indicate that as a information item during your piece, if you so desire.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, or if we want to have a sheet out, because what I did on the newsletter, just for your information, is I took your agenda and just copied it onto the page, so they'll know exactly what the topics are, so.
Okay, great,
So
thank
it's up to you, whatever the plan is.
No problem whatsoever.
Tomas?
CAB is planning their annual Get Out and Play Date, Saturday, June 17th at St. Joe's. That's about it.
June 17th,
I understand.
okay. Police chief, so I don't forget you this time.
Thank you. I've placed our annual report in front of each of you in a folder there. I just wanted to distribute. It kind of highlights the events from last year. Please feel free to peruse through it whenever you want. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have now, or if you come up with some later, email me or at the next board meeting, whichever you prefer. But it's a nice compilation of everything from training to community events to crime stats, and it's even broken down to how many calls we had throughout the year by hour, the 24-hour cycle, and things like that. So we prepared that, and I'm giving it to you now. Therefore, I'm going to have Greg put it on our website as well, on the police department page. I just want to say thank you to Officer Dave Mode, who put this thing together. He's one of the more proficient officers with the computer at work, so I grabbed him up and volunteered him for this job. So he did a really good job. If you feel I'm missing anything maybe that you would like to see in the report, I can certainly take any suggestions and include that in the next year's report as well. But I just wanted to get that out to everybody on a timely manner as the end of last year approached. So please feel free to peruse through it at your leisure, and if you got any questions, just let me know.
Okay, thank you, chief. Jimmy?
Just really quick, last week myself and the police chief were actually down in Springfield for Legislative Day, obviously on his end for the police side, myself for the fire. I know I met with Representative Welch twice, actually, the night before and the day of, and various other House reps that were available to talk to us about. There was about 6 or 8 hot topics out there right now for us that are active downstate. I can't speak for the police side, but and then also it was kind of a week to be doing things together. We also read it Dr. Seuss Day. We missed you. I was thinking who was wearing, we had nobody there to wear the hat and tail and all that good stuff, but we had that last Friday over at the primary
Good.
school, and it went really well. So that's all I got.
Mr. Chris?
Just a reminder that vehicle stickers are currently on sale. And then also next Tuesday will be our final budget meeting, starting at 6 p.m. I'm actually going to give the board the entire budget that night instead of focusing just on 2 or 3 departments. I want to give the whole picture. So it might be a long night, but I feel it will be best to give you guys the big picture of everything.
Thank you. Gregory?
Yes, most of my stuff will come in the committee of the whole meeting with regards to T-Mobile, some of the findings we've got with regards to the boiler in the basement, et cetera. I'll discuss there. But I just want to make one other point, something I noticed that I had done sort of incorrectly. Throughout time, I've given you updates on debt recovery monies that have been owed to us, or I should say that we thought we were going to be getting, and then I would give you how much we've actually collected. But one thing I noticed as I was doing some reconciliation with the numbers is that due to protests that have come in, there's been some numbers that haven't matched, and we haven't actually collected, even though I said we were going to be getting those. So what I'll end up doing in the near future, especially now with the large numbers that are coming in, I'm going to forward them on to the village manager, who can forward them on to you. But just to keep in mind that even though it states we're going to collect them, they still have the opportunity to protest, and in some cases we've found that they've either made payment by showing a canceled check. There's been a clerical error either on the collection agents or in our records department. But nonetheless, I just wanted to make that point clear that some of the numbers that I've given may not match necessarily. Of course, we'll catch up to the number that I've given, but only number I'll give you tonight is the amount that we've actually gotten into the bank account, $401,621.05 as of today.
And 5 cents?
Correct.
Okay.
Some people's tax return wasn't a full 100 or full 50, depending on what they need to owe. But that's the final amount that we've actually gotten in the bank from my calculations. And that's all I have tonight.
And about how many actually, I have that coming in the next newsletter, a piece of that, because tax day is coming up. So when
Yes.
somebody gets a shy tax return, so they don't lose their mind.
There's about
I'll have,
75 every other day.
I'm sorry?
75 people every other day are getting the notices. I'm assuming the state is doing the returns in such a way that, they're not doing them all together, so it seems like they're breaking up how they're making payments. And then once the payment's due, they then deduct and send us the notice.
But I've lost track of years. How many years have we been actually in the program? I know
2 years.
2 full.
Two full years.
Correct.
Okay. Thanks. You're helping Janet, because I have all these things yellowed out in the newsletter for her to
They're ready
find
to
out
go.
the answers to. So,
Great.
yeah, help it. So you better thank him now. So, okay, thank you.
That's all I have.
Robert?
Just want to update the board on the post office. We did have the leaks repaired. They did find some cracks in the silicone, so those have been repaired under warranty. And we did find that some of the tuck pointing cracks are taking on water and producing some small leaks in the fire department. So we have someone to do the tuck pointing, but we have to wait till the temperature gets warm
Weather
enough
permitting,
to do
correct.
that. Yeah, he was going to come out today, take another look, but we postponed that.
Yeah.
So that should, by the end of the month, if it warms up enough, we should have the tuck pointing done and sealed up, and we can report back to post office, their maintenance division, and tell them we've resolved the issues.
Great, thank you.
As a second item, just want you to know that I've gone to EPA seminar on the new lead and copper rule. That will affect our drinking water in that there's a number of new requirements and reports that they're going to have. The biggest one is probably all the testing in the schools, which we are ahead of that issue. They've indicated to us that the susceptible population they're most concerned about is K through 5. So all testing in the elementary schools will be required, and we've done that. In the future, beginning in 2018, they're going to start looking at other populations. So middle schools, junior highs, high schools, they're probably moving into regulating all the schools for drinking water. So just want everyone to know the water source does not have discernible amounts of lead in it, and our water mains don't have lead in it. The lead problem is in the service lines, the fixtures in the buildings, and in the lines in the buildings. That's 99% of the problem with the lead. So it's not in the source of water. They're going to change our notifications to increase it. When we had main maintenance, we were passing out notices about the potential for lead exposure. They have increased that to include meter changes, shutoffs for non-payment, and any construction work. So we will have to be passing out notices almost anytime we do something to the water main or any of the service lines. It'll be the notice that we had seen last year that we passed out. This will be more prevalent, and there'll probably be questions. People will be asking, why are we getting this notice? But these are new requirements, and we do have a fair amount of lead services out there, so we are required to do this. So that'll be something new.
Did they give you a range of?
Yeah, in the
of,
parts per
I would say
billion.
exposure, like say for instance, we're doing something at my house. Did they say you have to do a 100-foot radius of that, or everybody that's fed off that between those valves?
Yeah,
Did they give you any indication of where they're going with that?
Right, we asked that question, they said, well, if it's a break or maintenance, if you're turning two valves, it's in between those two valves for the shutoff. That's where it would be. If it's a service line, it is just that house. that does cause issues. I know we did that before when the valves near a main break a year ago, one of them wouldn't hold, so we had to go another block, and then we notified
Everybody.
a lot of people, and everyone was very concerned, and then the people that didn't get noticed the next block up wanted to know why. So it generated a lot of questions, and I think it's important for the board to know that we are required to start doing this again. So, and for almost anything, shut-offs and meter changes.
And I would suggest that we continue and test the middle school and all the schools that are in our jurisdiction. I mean, if they're just gonna add K-5 or above K-5 or whatever in the next year or something, you know, for us, it's a couple more schools. So really, just put them on the rotation now and give everyone a little bit of peace of mind. Also, you know, as I suggested in the past, the enhancement of testing in the village. I don't know if they've addressed that, to increase more than 14 or 15 or whatever we do to probably 60 based on my X factor, I'll call it, locationing. So everyone in a specific police zone, as I use as a basis, that there will be peace of mind that the corners, the middle, and the outside edges have been tested. To me, you know, looking at some of the data that was given to me in the past, that, you know, we had 4 houses tested on the same 100 block. I mean, that's, to me, silly.
Right.
No.
They picked those sites, and some of that is based on what they feel is relevant, and there's a lot of factors that they do. They did not increase that. We certainly can overtest. That's our option beyond the requirement. They don't look at geographic distribution so much as they look at pressure in the system, residual chlorine, and how gridded up your system is, and they're looking for places that might be the most susceptible. What will help with that is when we finish our hydraulic model, the computer model of the system, that'll point out low pressure zones, and they would agree to testing those areas if we have areas that have lower pressure than the rest of the system for a variety of reasons. Then they might want that tested as part of water quality.
I mean, I get it. I'm just saying, if the North Hydorn and Roosevelt, if we're not testing anything near there and we're testing everything near Boger and Cermak by St. Joe's there, which is in fact what's occurring, that somebody living at that far corner would certainly say, hey, how's my area? You know, and my way of thinking is that if we tested something near to each corner of the rectangles that are already defined by major streets in this town, we would be able to answer that question. That we tested a house in the vicinity of Hydorn and Roosevelt in the 1300 block. We also tested at Dickens and Boger, and we tested, you know, at Shelley and wherever, and we tested on Burns, and we tested at Mandel near Shakespeare, which gave us a relative test area that we could point to instead of all, you know, put together in one location, I guess, for lack of a better thing.
The IEPA picks those sites. We don't.
Well, I think we sent them to them. You know, when I had my conversation with them, they really didn't care which ones you sent. I mean, when I talked to them, they said, hey, you send them to us. We don't know where they are. I mean, more or less. But there's a criteria. They're looking for, if you've had a lead issue, like say, I know of one on Manchester, you know, that would be somewhat of a continual site until the problem was alleviated, whether there was a new faucet or there was some kind of change or, you know, in the lead service line, or in this potential was a solder line of a copper thing.
Right.
So that's a whole another animal out there. But I just want to make sure that the whole town is covered. Whoever's sitting in this seat as the president is responsible for all the water issues out of the water agency and, you know, has the power to do the boil orders and all these other things. But ultimately, you know, the control of the water by EPA falls on that person's shoulder. So I think if we, I'm gonna say over-test, I think the fees for testing are not that expensive, to be quite honest with you. And I don't know if they've gone to a double test or still the single test, or they're still deciding on how they want to do that, certain times apart. I mean, I'm not familiar with the intricacies of the new piece, but yeah, peace of mind to me is far more valuable than having an issue or a question out there.
Well, I think that's what we want for all of our citizens, so they have confidence in the drinking water we're providing them. No questions.
Yeah, well, I think that's where, I think we're on the same page. So, great, thank you. Anything else, sir? Nothing. Melissa, did you want to take her? I know she was ill today.
We'll wait till the count.
Oh, she has nothing for,
No.
nothing at this point. Okay. President report, I just want to make some comments relative to a couple of topics that have appeared before this board in the last month or so. Last month, we heard about chickens and pigeons. And one of the topics that has not come back, but it certainly was a topic that I wanted to address, was the stucco piece. And I'll just make my comments. My thought, I'm not a fan of the bird stuff. I think chickens and pigeons are all birds. So, but what I will concede is if the board agrees or thinks that we want to go in a direction that allows that, if you don't want to allow it, then I'll keep my mouth shut. If you're thinking that you are leaning to allow that, in either case, I would suggest that we create some kind of mechanism of a license agreement and license these individually. And actually, I would treat this more as a public hearing zoning type situation where people that have asked for it, say I asked for it at 1934 Downing to do this and do this, that there's specified criteria with testing, location, numbers of birds and things of that nature, and that a 250-foot radius, kind of like we do with the zoning matters, where everybody's notified within that parameter. They have an ability to come to a board meeting at a committee of the whole meeting and have a quasi-public hearing on individually each one of those requests. So we're not going to make it a blanket request and say, okay, we're going to change it, we're going to allow chickens and or pigeons, and then change it for everybody. I think I would want to hear from, just like we did with the sign ordinances and things of that nature, what the feel of the will of the people might be in the, what I would call the affected area. So that's one way to look at it if you are interested in even making a change. If you're not, then the point is moot. We keep our ordinances as they are, and that's it. As you know, I was in Florida. I read a paper down there, and in Kentucky or Tennessee, there was an outbreak of avian flu at some bird chicken hatchery or whatever, and they had to destroy all the birds. And there's some, you know, there's some inherent dangers with handling for the homeowner or anybody else, salmonella and all these other things. If you look on the CDC website, you'll get a headache looking at different things that are out there. Now, they're out there with dog feces and all that other stuff as well. But right now, the prohibitions are out there, or there's an allowance based on space containment of X amount of feet from a house or a garage or a lot line or whatever. That must have been put in there for a reason when they were put in. So, if you're interested in changing any of those to reflect a change in the operation, that would be my suggestion. If you're not interested in changing it and leaving it exactly the way it is, then let's come out and say, we looked at it and we're leaving it as it is. We're not allowing these two things to happen. Or if you want one versus the other, but to me, I still think that if you're going to do something individually, you may consider, like we do for liquor licenses or anything else, make a license agreement, but we need to come up with some bona fide criteria of inspections and numbers and locations and things like that, because it is a change of game here. So, that's just my thought on that matter.
I was gonna
Tom?
say, right now, they're not legal at all in town.
No.
The birds. Okay. There's certain people that have extended properties that may wanna have that wouldn't affect anybody else. So, I don't know if we wanna entertain like what Sam said and control it by license. So at least the option's
If-
out there, but we really have to control it, you know.
No, I mean,
I wouldn't want,
I don't
wouldn't want
know of any
somebody-
properties off the top of my head that it would fall into. I know in a neighboring community, there's bigger lots and they're allowed because of the bigger lots. Here, I'm not real certain who would have a big enough lot to contain that. I mean, based on what I've seen on our map, everybody seems to be, 50 by 125 or even smaller than
Something like
that.
that, yeah.
Than that. So,
Double lots, some people in double lots next door. Right.
So, I mean, those are things that are out there for consideration. But if you're not interested, then let's cut it at the knees.
I am not interested in making any changes. I think with regards to the health issues and everything else, and once you open up that, to licensing and, I mean, we put a limit, that means we have to then inspect. I mean, we don't have an animal control division that can handle pets, and then there are certain limits with other household animals, but we don't actually know. But we're talking about, in some cases with the pigeons, you're talking about feral animals, and there's a lot of issues with that. And like I said, with chickens, I just, I think there's too many health concerns, and I think also when you have something like that, you're also inviting other things to come into the yard, other predatory animals.
You know where I'm at, but I'm throwing out the branch if someone.
I'm not for making any changes.
I'm not a chicken guy, but I'm not a cat guy either. So, but I think though that they're, these guys both made compelling arguments, and I think they both talked about vaccinations. So, I mean, I don't know anything about pigeons, chickens, or anything like that. But if there's a series of vaccinations, if there's no problem with the neighbors, if they have. We had asked to see pictures. I know the one gentleman sent us pictures for the pigeons, but we had asked to see pictures of the chicken setup, and I don't think I know I didn't receive anything, but I'd like to see it, and I guess I wouldn't be opposed to a licensing thing because it has to be limited. But you have a neighbor that just feeds 1,000, just wild birds, and when you do that, you attract cats, you attract other predators, you attract, where if this is in a coop, if this is contained a little more and a little more controlled, there's vaccinations. The one guy was talking about, he's got feeding, he's got watering stations and all this other stuff. I guess I'd find out more about it, but
Well, that's what I would say. If you're going in that direction, I
I
think
would
you're looking at a
entertain
licensing
I would entertain
operation
a licensing thing.
and whatever. And again,
On a case-by-case basis, I would entertain that.
they could certainly be required in the licensing agreement to provide something for us. Because, who are we going to send out there? Colonel Sanders to check the chickens or something? You know what I mean? I think you would, whatever you're looking at, we'd have to certainly do some research on this to have a licensing thing. But you would have to have that as part of it, and that has to be submitted, whether it's a yearly basis, like a rabies thing or whatever. You would have to follow that.
Sure.
So, just something to think about. The other thing is, the person came before this board regarding the stucco piece on put over the brickwork. I drove around town. I basically found 4 instances of stucco houses. 2 were built like that back in the 50s over on Hawthorne and Stratford, in my neck of the woods, 1600 block. There's one on Suffolk around Manchester that was made stucco, and we looked at the history regarding it, and it was approved by a former commissioner in the village back around 2005 or 6-ish.
Oh, really?
It was approved as kind of a blue-gray one. It's around Manchester and Bond, somewhere in
I know,
that,
yeah.
in that neighborhood. It was approved. Nick found one that had a fascia piece on Windsor. The top section, the new addition, is all stucco, and the 3 walls are brick, but the face was a stucco material or was a application. I'm sure you've seen the Menards flyers. And in fact, if you go into the firehouse, into their training room, I just saw it today, there's an application that looks like brick. It's a panel. And I'm sure that panel is glued or nailed or affixed on top of face brick. So in other words, it looks like a sandstone front
Right.
instead of common brick or regular brick, which is really some kind of quote-unquote siding.
Sure.
In my opinion, this came back from Florida, and every house out there was stucco, and meaning it looked very nice. I think the one we're talking around on Windsor, or Windsor in Essex, and right in front of the Kennedy School there, I mean, all of us looked at the pictures, and it looked nice.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, it looked
yeah.
nice. So what I'm suggesting to the board to consider is that if, we've already had a couple of hiccups. Okay? If the one on Windsor shouldn't have been done, we approve that one for the fascia. If the one on Suffolk was done and we approved that and missed it somehow, or there's
There's one on the boulevard too, but.
and the one on the boulevard is another one. That, there's some question on that one, because if you look at the plans, it says it will remain brick, and then it ended up being stucco on the bottom half
Oh,
of it.
really?
Yeah, so whatever the hiccups were, they're out there. So none of these houses look bad, and until we got actually an anonymous complaint about that house, we would have drove by it 100 times.
Right.
And never said boo shit about it. So, what I'm suggesting is it not prudent with the new materials that are out there now, that look aesthetically pleasing, that something placed over brick doesn't mean the brick was gone? I mean, we don't allow construction of a wooden house with siding, vinyl or otherwise, on the first floor anywhere in town under new construction. And I wouldn't care to cover a brick home with a vinyl or wooden siding like you have on your garage. But something that is brick-like and that looks like a sandstone or something like that, that's recently been made available to the public, might be something that we would all consider covering our own houses with.
Right.
So, think about it. If you agree, great. If we want to leave it the way it is, then, that's the purview of the board as well. But these things are out there, and I think everyone would agree that that house on Windsor Drive, that house on Essex, the house on Suffolk and
Right. It's
Manchester
sharp.
there,
It's a sharp
the
house.
one on Westchester Boulevard, do not detract from the aesthetic appearance of any home in Westchester.
I think we just want it so it's brick. What goes over the brick, we're okay with, basically. Right now, we're not, but that's what you're saying, as long as it's brick.
Yes, or, stucco is a cement product of some sort. They put it, but they're not taking the brick off and just
Right.
throwing
But
stucco
there's
up.
brick first, and then there's stucco.
Yeah.
I
So,
got no problem with
just something to think about.
Sam's got a bleeding heart today.
that. Yeah.
Only 57 days left, so.
All right.
Times 57. So anyway, those are just a couple of things I wanted to talk about and bring to your attention, because ultimately, you know, it may come back after I'm gone, it may not, but if it does surface itself, because I don't know exactly where we are with the letter on Downing there, in Essex. And I know there was some concern about having to take that off and what now it's gonna look like once it's off.
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather have them keep it on than take it off.
They all look nice.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, they all look nice.
Well, I guess it's something that we can talk to Melissa, explanation. I think you all know what I'm talking about, those
Mhm.
panels.
Yeah.
They look very nice and they're decorative.
It's like a foam panel, and then they put that.
Yeah, but I'm saying even that brick
Yeah.
siding that looks
Right,
like
no,
brick,
yeah, exactly.
you know,
Well, there's a house even down the street from you that has the brick siding on it, on the 1800 block.
could very well be.
They put that
Do you
addition
want
on
to have
it.
further discussion at a
Nothing.
future cow, and then maybe go from there, and then possibly do a complete change?
Yeah, but I think it's you know, it's up to the board what they want to do. But those are just my comments for today. All right, executive session. Nick, did you say you needed something?
Yeah.
You got something imminent?
Potentially.
Okay, we're gonna need another 5 illicks for litigation. We should know this by heart. 120
It's C3.
C3? Okay. 120 C3 for,
Pending or threatened litigation?
pending or,
Is it pending or is it threatened?
Threatened.
Okay, we're gonna have to identify it then when we vote, okay?
Okay.
I'll get it out of my car.
with nothing else, is there a motion, a second to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Carl and Frank. Roll call, please, or, all in favor of adjourning our board meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, any opposition, say no. We stand adjourned for our board meeting.